Hey guys, what's going on? Tua Cruz here with
Thuong and I.
In today's video, we're going to be talking about our plans for moving to Vietnam. So here on our channel, we recently announced that we were going to be moving to Vietnam from Japan, where we live now. And obviously our plans have gotten a little bit messed up with the whole global pandemic and everything. But anyway, we wanted to take this opportunity in this video to answer some of your guys' questions talking about our plan moving forward, going to Vietnam. And we also asked you guys for some of your questions that you've been wanting us to answer. So this is also going to be a bit of a Q&A video on a whole bunch of different random questions. So cycling related questions, personal related questions, and Vietnam related questions. Some questions are just me, it's just going to be me answering, and then other questions Thuong is also going to appear and answer. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started in today's video. Let's go.
Let's go.
The first question I wanted to focus on in this video is, where are we going in Vietnam and what are we going to be doing there? Originally, we were planning to go to Vietnam and sort of travel every few months. So maybe stay in one location for a month or two, or even 3 if we really liked it. And we were planning to travel throughout the entire country and just see the entire country while we could, and while we didn't really have any other family obligations or anything else holding us down. So that was our plan. We were thinking to start maybe in the north and make our way down to the south and hit up all the major places along the way. We're kind of worried with the virus situation and wondering what is the best plan moving forward that's safe for us. And we feel that the less we're moving around, the more safe we are. And that's one of the reasons why we're staying in Japan for right now. We're staying where we are. We feel it's not really safe to move. And even if we are able to move to Vietnam in the next few months, the situation isn't really going to be disappearing anytime soon until there's a vaccine and most people take the vaccine, but it seems like most people, or a lot of people, aren't really going to want to take the vaccine. So it's hard to predict when things are going to get back to normal, and so because of that, we're not really able to make a good plan. So in summary, our Vietnam plan, we have no idea what's going to happen, and it's really difficult for us to make a plan right now. But some of the areas at the top of our list right now are Da Nang, which is a big city in the center of Vietnam, and it's got everything. It's got mountains, it's got ocean, it's got beautiful beaches, and it's got nice wide roads, really clean. It's the biggest, cleanest city that I've been to in all of Vietnam. We actually made some travel vlogs in Vietnam a couple years ago when I went there to visit her family. Right before we got married, I had to meet the family and everything. So if you haven't checked out our old playlist, you can check it out. Some of the videos are really old though. And I really love Da Nang. It's a beautiful area. There's a lot of beautiful cities nearby. There's Hue, there's Hoi An, and it's just got a lot going on there, and an international airport. So I think that's one of our top picks for where we're going to be settling down in the future. But I have no idea. We're keeping our mind open for other locations as well. The second location on my top of my list is Da Lat, and Da Lat is a mountain town, more closer to Nha Trang or Ho Chi Minh in the south. It's still like a 5-hour drive to Ho Chi Minh City. It's up in the mountains, it's up more in elevation, it's got more fresh air, fresh mountain air. There's a whole bunch of different produce being made there, a lot of fresh vegetables, and just, yeah, fresh air, fresh vegetables, fresh everything. And also a cooler climate. There's no humidity from what I hear. It can get pretty warm during the day, but it gets really cool at night. And I really love that kind of climate. So it seems like it'd be a really great place for cycling, for mountain biking. But the disadvantage would be there wouldn't be as many resources or things that we might need. So those are our 2 top picks that we're thinking about moving towards in the future. But with the whole virus situation, we are also thinking to maybe stay closer to Thuong's hometown and her family for at least maybe the first few months to sort of get settled in Vietnam and make sure we get everything that we need, get through all the paperwork and everything. And her hometown is more towards Vinh, which is closer to Hanoi. So we might be starting out more up there in the north when we do go, especially when we're flying over. I think there's some of the direct routes from Tokyo to Hanoi right now are some of the few routes that are going to be opening up in the future. So we're likely going to be going to Hanoi first, but again, we don't really know what's going to happen, and we're just sort of waiting patiently and seeing how the situation opens up. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with some of the other Q&A questions that you guys submitted, and I'm going to call Thuong back in here for the first one. So the questions that we're going to be going over in today's video are questions that were posted on our Patreon's page, so anyone who helps support us on Patreon. And I also did a couple other random questions from our YouTube page and YouTube comments and Facebook page as well. So for the next time we do a Q&A, make sure you follow one of our pages so you can get your question in, and we'll try and answer it next time. So our first question here is from Philip Davis. He says, what language will you guys speak to each other at home when you move to Vietnam? And will you stick to Japanese? So for anyone who doesn't know, me and my wife is Vietnamese and I'm American. We speak Japanese here. We live here in Japan right now. ね、ベトナムに行ったらまだ日本語を使うか英語に変わるかベトナム語に変わるかどうになるかどう思
どうかな、
う？
今クルズがベトナム語を勉強してる、で私も英語を勉強してる、でベトナムに行ったらできればベトナム語を喋りたいでしょ。
まあ、
私も英語も練習したいからどんどん日本語が使わなくなるかな。
かもしれない。
メインのが英語とベトナム語だと思う。
So for now, it's a little hard for me to imagine not using Japanese as our main language, but I think we do want to try and gradually start using the other languages so we can become more confident in using those languages and just expand the ways we can communicate with each other. But I don't think we'll ever completely stop using Japanese. The next question from Chris Bates is, are you going to keep only one bike when you go to Vietnam? And if so, which one for each of you? I'm sure the BMC mountain bike stays. And what bike is best for riding in Vietnam? So I've thought about this quite a lot, and unfortunately if we try shipping our bikes to Vietnam, the taxes are just ridiculous. You almost have to pay full price for the bike, and it's best to bring it on the flight with you, but we also have to bring all of our luggage, so we're kind of limited on how much luggage we can bring. So because of that, I think we're only going to be bringing one bike to Vietnam, and that bike of course is going to be Thuong Chan's beautiful orange mountain bike. It's our newest bike. It's the best condition bike we have right now, and I also think having a mountain bike in Vietnam is really nice because there's a lot of dirt roads, there's a lot of rough roads, and the mountain bike is just generally really comfortable for any kind of riding, whether you're doing long riding, trail riding, explore riding. Mountain bike can go anywhere. So I think for me, if I were to get a new bike in Vietnam, which of course I have to do, I'm debating between a gravel bike and a mountain bike. I don't really think I'd want a road bike there because with the gravel bike you can always put the road tires on, and I'm more into exploration riding now and just adventure riding, and I don't really need a road bike to be competitive. The other reason for this is our bike lineup is getting pretty old, so all the parts are getting really old to the point where everything is starting to really need some maintenance, and we're better off, I think, financially wise and just stress-wise, getting a fresh new setup when we get to Vietnam. And I'm looking into different options. I'm also looking into folding bikes. I'm still not really sure what kind of bikes are available in Vietnam, but I think the major brands like Trek or Giant should be available. So at the very least, we should be able to get something like that. But I'm sort of waiting to see how things go once we get over there, and also looking to see if we can find maybe some brand partnerships to work with moving forward. And it also depends on how much we're going to be moving over there. So I think the folding bike would be the best bike in terms of convenience when we're just getting started over there, because that way we can move with the bike easily and we don't have to worry about too much luggage. And then maybe after we get settled and we get a good location, we can then start focusing on increasing our lineup and building the beautiful bicycle wall again. So the next question from Mark is, have you gotten your list of bikes and equipment you're going to take to Vietnam? And have you thought about how different the riding is going to be like there and what changes you will have to make? So the first question is the same as the last one I just answered. We are planning to bring Thuong's mountain bike, and when we get over there, I think I'd like to get a mountain bike myself as well, or we're going to go the two folding bike routes for the beginning at least, but I definitely do want to get a mountain bike over there. The one thing I'm really excited about compared to riding here in Japan is there are a lot more roads that you can go exploration riding on for like mountain bike. There's a lot more rough roads, there's a lot more dirt roads, and I also hear there is some decent network of mountain bike trails. So I'm really excited for all of that. One of the big downsides going there compared to here is there's going to be way less cycling infrastructure, almost non-existent cycling infrastructure. In the times that I have gone to Vietnam in the past, even the walking sidewalks, they're not really walking sidewalks because scooters, the bikes will go on there. If the traffic's really bad, they'll do it to go the opposite direction on the road. And so there's no really safe place for pedestrians to walk. And the same thing for like when you're riding a bike on the road, it's definitely going to be a lot more dangerous compared to Japan. There's no set lane for the bikes, there's no set rules. Everyone's just kind of going all over the place and it's a free-for-all. So there is going to be some adjustment to that, but at the same time, I don't really mind that style of riding. I feel it's a bit more adventurous. Like, yeah, it is more dangerous, but also at the same time, it's not something I want to do every day. So I think that's going to be a big factor in when we decide where we're going to go. If we're going to go the big city route in Da Nang, or if we're going to go the more smaller city route in Dalat in the mountain towns. And we just really have to wait and see how it goes once we're there, and we'll get a better idea of where we want to live long term. Like, I don't mind city riding. I actually really enjoy it. And there are some big cycling communities growing in Vietnam right now. They do some big group rides. They're early in the morning when there's no car traffic or anything. So if I have to adjust my schedule to where I just do my rides early in the morning, maybe that's not a problem. But if it ends up being too stressful riding in the city all the time, maybe we'll try and find a location more outskirts in the countryside area or mountain area. We'll see what happens. So the next question here is from Ma Theresa, and it says, what you and Thuong usually argue with, or do you even argue as a couple, because it seems like you don't argue at all. So this is a pretty funny question. 普段どんな喧嘩してるの俺たち。
普段、細かいところかな。なんか食べ物
So Tuan likes to eat rice. I like to eat bread, or I get sick of rice just eating it all the time. So we often will have little arguments over like what to eat, or I often eat a lot of ice cream and she'll be like, no, stop eating ice cream.
最初
はもっと喧嘩してたけど。
そう、最初の結婚の2年間よく喧嘩した。毎日ほど喧嘩した。まあこう最初が2人も
違う生活に慣れてるから。
そう、違う性格、違う、今まで、人生が違うから合わせるのがすごい時間かかるし、で文化が全然違うから、慣れる相手を慣れるまですごい時間かかる。でその間によく喧嘩した。で3年目、今年が3年目、結婚の3年目でちょっとジョックになった。
平和。
No. 良くなった。はい。
And the next question here from Tempo Monk is, do you guys have any long-term goals outside of cycling, and have you ever talked about starting a family? サイクリング以外の大きい目標ありますか？
あります。
何？
いろんなところに旅行したい、見に行きたい。
例えばどこ？
ヨーロッパ。
ヨーロッパのどこ？
ヨーロッパってドイツとか、まあそういうのまあ大きな国。
We have to go to Eurobike one day. ドイツで大きい自転車の展示会があるよ。
そう
去年行った仕事で。
BMC の。あとメキシコ。そこがクルーズよく行ったメキシコの料理はめっちゃ美味しいって。私も食べたい。本物を食べに行きたいなって。
で、アメリカのどこ？
アメリカ、まずミシガン州、でクルーズの地元、ずっと地元、いいコースあるよ、サイクリングのいいコース。
マウンテンバイクのコースいっぱいある。
大きな池あるよって。
あと山がない。楽。
そう、楽。ただ見に行きたい。でクルーズの家族も会いたいから。
どこ行ったことある？どこの国？
今ね、最初のが日本。で次が台湾。で次がタイ。3つ。
それだけ。
あなたは数えれない？
カナダ。
ポルトリコ。
Germany。
3。
イタリア。
4。
Switzerland。ちょっとだけ。In Europe also Romania. Then in Asia we have China. Mainland China. Hong Kong. And Taiwan. Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, went to Bali, Japan, of course, Bali, not really a different country, but U.S. territory. Korea.
よくやったね。今年4倍ぐらい。
まあこれからコロナが終わったら。The next question, while we have Thuong here, is from Farik, and it is Big Mac or cheeseburger. So I know Thuong-chan's gonna go with the
Big Mac.
And I actually go with the cheeseburger, preferably the double cheeseburger. And mainly for me, I don't really feel a big difference in taste between the two, but the double cheeseburger is cheaper in price. So I like going with the double cheeseburger because I like saving a little bit of money. And Thuong-chan likes the Big Mac. なんで Big Mac 一番好きなの？
一番美味しいだから。
Actually, my favorite McDonald's hamburger is the Tsukimi Burger, which comes in September, and it looks like we're probably going to still be here in September, so we have one more chance to eat Tsukimi Burger, The next question from Sam Rainey is, what advancement or upgrade in cycling has made the biggest impact on your riding? So I think if I were to answer this from the perspective of performance, my answer would be different. But considering I'm not really a performance-focused cyclist anymore, I'm going to change my answer and focus more on what has impacted me the most in just general for cycling. And that would be a really nice cycle computer. So before I moved to Japan, I never had a nice cycle computer. I just always sort of had the standard like speed and cadence kind of sensor. I never really had one of those nice sensors. And actually when I was racing, I never even bothered with those computers because I just felt the information was completely useless and I was just relying on my body feel. I raced so much to the point where I pretty much knew all the information I needed, and I just didn't like racing. I didn't like training with those cycle computers, and it just really irritated me. But after I moved to Japan, I got my first really nice cycle computer, and I believe it was a Garmin Edge 520, so really expensive computer, especially for me at the time. Just getting one of those, it was a huge deal for me, and it was a life changer. And just being able to have the maps on the computer right on my handlebars was a really nice feature for me. Like, this is maybe pretty normal stuff for some other people, but for me, it was a big change. And I really disliked the UI of some of the features of the computer. But ever since I got my new Wahoo Element Bolt, all of those UI elements have been fixed. The map is like way better. And just being able to program in a route, like I decide on my computer, I want to go on this route. I download the route information, I sync it up with my computer, and I don't need to pull up my phone. I can just have the computer on my handlebars. I can focus on my ride. I can see where every road around me is sort of going. And for me, this has been the biggest impact on my riding just because it's made me able to enjoy the ride more and just focus on, what I'm doing and enjoy cycling. These cycle computers can be a really expensive investment in the beginning, but I would say they're totally worth it. And you don't necessarily need to get them just for performance. They're great for just exploration and stuff like that as well. The next question, or questions from Hazmat, is 1. Have you met Rides of Japan? 2. Will you try and get some gravel riding in before you leave Japan? 3. Have you ever kept up with the pro cycling scene since you shifted away from it as a career path? For example, favorite teams, riders, and races. So the first question, no, I have never personally met Rides of Japan. He's based over in Tokyo area, and I'm based down here in Nagoya. So we unfortunately haven't had an opportunity to meet yet, but if we are ever in the same area, it'd be great to go out for a ride together someday. For the second question, regarding gravel riding, believe me, I have searched everywhere around my area where I live for gravel riding, and it almost doesn't exist. Gravel riding in Japan is very niche. That's only really available in certain areas. And the little gravel riding that you can find is usually only what they call rindo, or mountain service roads, where they usually are cutting trees. So they're not really roads intended for public use, of course. And it can take the joy out of gravel riding if you're just constantly going up steep mountains and then the road just sort of suddenly ends. There's no real network of gravel roads, but again, it really depends on where you live. There are some hidden gems that you can find, but you really have to go pretty far out of your way to find them. And this is really different compared to my hometown. In my hometown, we have majority gravel roads, so gravel roads are everywhere. They're easy to find, and it's a nice network of gravel roads. But here in Japan, that doesn't really exist. I think some other locations, maybe like Hokkaido or Shikoku, some of the other islands or some of the more remote areas, there's a lot more options. But unfortunately, around here, there isn't much, and I have searched high and low everywhere around me trying to find as many gravel roads or secret mountain bike trails as I can. And honestly, most of the time, I just end up disappointed. I find a new trail, I get really excited about it, and then I cycle for like 200 meters or like a half kilometer, and then the road suddenly ends, or then you're suddenly going into like some private property you're not supposed to be there. It hasn't been great, honestly, from my experience anyway. And for the last question, I don't really keep up with the pro cycling scene at all. Ever since I cut ties with professional racing and sort of that aspiration of wanting to become a professional rider, I don't know, I've lost interest in it. I don't really enjoy watching sports, if that makes sense. I really enjoy participating in sports. I really enjoy participating in activities, but I don't really get much joy in watching sports. When I watch sports, I just get really anxious and I feel like I kind of wish I was down there, So I honestly have barely followed the pro cycling circuit at all since I've sort of given up that dream of mine. Next question from Jack's Random Adventures. Is Cruz your real name? And if so, are you named after an certain over-related celebrity? And yeah, Cruz actually is my real name. Actually, my real name is Christopher Cruz Bogadin. So Cruz is technically my middle name, but ever since I was born, my parents have called me Cruz, And throughout my entire school education, I was always Cruz. It's basically like my first name. No one has ever called me Christopher. The next question from PDXC is, will you ever go back to Michigan? So again, for anyone new, my hometown is Michigan. I grew up most of my early adult life in Michigan, all the way up until university. Up until first year of university, I was at Oakland University in Michigan for my first year. And then after that, I just sort of transferred all over the place from different cycling teams, cycling scholarships, and different universities. So I was in North Carolina for half a year. I was in Kentucky on the cycling team there for 2 years, and then working there for a year. And then I went to grad school in St. Louis for a year and a half, and then I worked there for another year. And then I made my way over to Japan. So I haven't been in Michigan or lived in Michigan in a really long time, not since I was about 17 or 18. But obviously I still have some big attachments to Michigan. My home is based there. My entire cycling foundation is based in Michigan, from the local mountain bike races there, from our velodrome there, and the amazing cycling community in Michigan. I owe so much to that, and so many of my first cycling memories are based in there. So I have a lot of fond memories in Michigan. And I have been really tempted to move back to Michigan, actually. They just opened up a new velodrome, an indoor velodrome, one of the best velodromes, maybe the best velodrome in the US, I would say now. The Lexus Velodrome in Detroit is just phenomenal location. And for that alone, I've been very tempted to move back. And in my time here in Japan, I've realized that, yeah, the cycling here is way better. The road cycling here is amazing. The scenery is amazing. But the community, I would say, is a little bit more tight-knit in Michigan, at least from my experience. Just the mountain biking community, the track cycling community, and also the road racing community. It just feels a lot more close-knit, and there's a lot more organized activities, training races. Yeah, it's hard to compare to that for me. And so I've been really tempted to go back just for those reasons and being part of that community and having all those different facilities nearby. But at the same time, I also, of course, enjoy life over here in Asia, and if I'm married now, so I can't make decisions on my own, and I'm not sure how my wife would feel about moving all the way to America, which is a way different change compared to Asia, and she'd be way far away from her family. So it is something we are considering in the long future. If we ever have kids, if we're going to raise them, I am considering the possibility of going back to America so that they can go to American schools more inexpensively. But there are also some other things I'm concerned about in America. For example, the healthcare system, health insurance is just insane. And there are some dangerous situations in the US with gun violence and just crazy people and the over-policing culture. So I'm not sure if we'll ever go to Michigan to move there together, but at the very least, for sure, we're definitely going to go and visit when we can. Once coronavirus settles down, once we are able to get a vaccine and able to travel more freely, more safely, and we're financially stable over in Vietnam and settled, definitely we want to make a plan to travel to America so that Thuong Chan can visit America and experience my hometown and just show her all the beautiful places in Michigan. The next question from Shane: why does the word chan get used a lot in Japan, and what does it mean? So in the Japanese language, whenever you say someone's name, you always need to add, or you should always add, some sort of suffix. It's kind of like Mr. So san is Mr., so you would call me Cruz-san, Mr. Cruz. But there's also different ones for different levels of politeness. So kun is kind of like someone the same age as you for a guy. And then chan is kind of like a cute one, or like for kids. So often they'll use it for girls, especially more younger girls. And so Thuong is her name. So Thuong Chan just kind of means like, oh, cute Thuong, or like child Thuong, or girly Thuong. The next question from Jackson is, have you ever thought of doing a really long ride like those people that ride across countries with all their camping gear and such? And yes, definitely, this is one of my big dreams. And this is another big project I've been planning for once we are able to move to Vietnam and get settled over there. I really want to cycle along the entire country from north to south or south to north. I haven't decided which direction yet, but I definitely want to do one of these long trips. I also want to do a full cycling trip around the entire island of Taiwan and even some other places as well. This is a big dream of mine, and I do want to do some more bike packing, bike touring, whichever is more suitable at the time. So yeah, this is something you'll definitely be seeing in the future here on the Tubo Cruise channel. The next question from Echo Gaming: say you guys had a blank budget, what would be your dream build for a bike? For me personally, this would be a belt drive touring bike. This is by far the bike I want the most right now moving forward, especially going into Vietnam. I want a bike that's able to carry a decent load so we can do some more longer travel rides, and I also really want a nice quality belt drive bike. It just seems amazing. You don't have to worry so much about the maintenance, and they last really long, and they just perform flawlessly in all sorts of conditions. So Vietnam has a lot of dirt roads, it has a lot of mud, and I don't really want to have to worry about a derailleur braking, and the belt drive system just seems awesome. And actually, come to think of it, there's actually another bike that I really want moving forward, and that is a tandem bike. So it's a little bit expensive for us to both get really nice touring bikes, and one of the solutions that I've considered is getting a really nice tandem bike for the two of us, so that way we can both be on the same bike, and that way I can do most of the driving moving forward if we're going on a hard ride. Thuong doesn't need to push out as much power, and that way we can both enjoy the ride a little bit more. So maybe a tandem touring bike would be really cool if we could get one of those moving forward. Unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be any really good options for these in Vietnam, so we'd have to get some sort of custom import, and the import would be really expensive. So this isn't something I think will be in our budget anytime soon, but we can dream, I guess. So one day we'll get a nice tandem bike maybe. And the last question here is from Nathan. This is a little bit of a longer one. So how do you fund your lifestyle in Japan? Is it just through YouTube and Patreon? And the total cost of all your bikes must be more than $10,000. Did you just save up this amount to buy this? Must have been hard without a job, unless you are a trust fund baby, or do you and your wife go Dutch on some expenses? So first, I'd like to clarify that no, I'm not a trust fund baby or anything like that. Everything that I have here in this apartment here in Japan, everything that I have in my life here in Japan is stuff that me and now Thuong together have worked together and saved to buy. A lot of the bikes that you see here are bikes that I've bought over the years. I've lived here 5 years, so it's not like I bought all of these bikes at the same time. Usually I buy like maybe one new bike a year or something like that. And I just posted a video talking about how much money you make here as an average teacher, average living costs, and how much money you can save every year. So I think buying a bike like this once a year isn't too big of a stretch. Some of the bikes aren't that expensive. Like this bike was only $1,000, the single speed. The cyclocross bike here I actually bought right when Brexit was announced, so the British pound just was collapsing, and I saw that as an opportunity, so I bought it at a really good discount. And so this bike, the cyclocross bike, only cost me $1,500 with SRAM Rival full carbon bike. A great deal. So if you're a good shopper, you can find good deals. And bikes also hold their value. So yeah, I have this big collection of bikes, which maybe was about $10,000 at retail. It's not worth that now. But when I sell this, I'm going to get some money back. And then when I buy some new bikes in Vietnam, it's not going to be like you're completely starting over. So the good thing with cycling equipment, it doesn't completely depreciate. It still has some value when you're moving forward. And I've been cycling a long time, so this has been a long thing that I've been doing. So I think I started cycling competitively at about 16. So from then on, I just started building my, what do you call this, bicycle wealth? Basically money that I spend on my cycling assets. And yeah, it just continues and grows over time. And sometimes you get good opportunities. In the past, when I was racing more professionally, I was even at the level where I was getting some bikes for free. So yeah, you get a bike for free, you race it for a year, and then the next year you can sell it and get some profit and then buy some new bike. Unfortunately, I don't get any bikes for free right now, but it would be great if we get a bike sponsor moving forward. That'd be great. If you're a bike company out there and you're interested in helping sponsor this channel in Vietnam, yeah, give me an email, twowheelcruise@gmail.com. And the next part, as for me and my wife mixing expenses, our finances are pretty much intertwined. Actually, my wife doesn't really have any financial assets of her own. So even though my wife did live here and work here for 4 years before we met and got married and everything, she was saving money, but that money was for the purpose of sending back to her family in Vietnam. So for people who aren't familiar, that's sort of how it is here in the cheaper Southeast Asian countries. The children will go off to other countries, they'll save up some money, and they send it back home so the family can buy a nice house. So her family in Vietnam was able to buy a nice house because her brother went to Taiwan, she went to Vietnam, and they were just sending back all the money they made every month. So they weren't saving anything for themselves, but they were sending all back to the family so that they could have a nice house. So that's what she did for 4 years, and she doesn't have any assets of herself. And actually the first year when we got married, we came back to Japan. She wasn't able to work for a while. We had to get the whole visa sorted and everything. So she literally has no financial assets of her own. But basically we're mixed now. So when I was working full-time in Japan and she was working max part-time hours, we would just accumulate all of our income and we would just allocate it like in a budget. So we had this much free money for things that we wanted to buy this month, but everything else we try to save as much as possible. so that we can buy more equipment moving forward. We can prepare for this kind of time. We can invest in some other ways. So we're pretty strict about that in budgeting. Yeah, budgeting is huge. If you're able to budget really well and plan for these things, it can reduce a lot of stress. So that leaves us to where we are now. How are we funding our lifestyle in Japan now? So now we do get some earnings from YouTube, but honestly, it's not very much. It's nowhere near enough to support our living costs here in Japan. We also get some income from our Patreon supporters and people who donate on PayPal. So thank you guys so much, everyone who's donated, everyone who's still helping support us on Patreon. It really helps us through these times. But even so, with our Patreon support and with our YouTube earnings, it's still not enough to cover our average monthly living costs here in Japan. The plan was we weren't going to be relying on this for very long. We were only expecting to be here for a couple months before we were able to move to Vietnam. So we weren't really planning to be stuck in this situation for very long. But at the same time, with the support that we are getting from that and the amount that we have saved up, we're not losing too much money every month. It's just sort of trickling down a little bit. And there have been some other things along the way that have reduced the financial burden. In Japan, they gave about $1,000 per person sort of stimulus or refund on the taxes. So we got $2,000 from her and for me. And then as an American citizen, I also got the $1,200 stimulus check. So we got about $3,000 in stimulus refunds from the Japanese government and American government moving forward, which has also helped. But there are some other projects that I'm working on to make money. For example, writing Japanese ebooks, teaching Japanese, and I also do a little bit of freelance programming on the side. So we are able to get by somewhat right now, but it is a little bit stressful not knowing what's coming each month, and it would be a lot less stressful once we're able to move to Vietnam and our living costs go down considerably. We can be in a bit more of a comfortable situation. So at least up until now, we've been relatively okay, but moving forward, I'm not sure honestly what's going to be happening. Ideally, the sooner we can move to Vietnam, the better, but who knows how long we're going to be stuck here, and worst case scenario, we may need to go back into teaching here and getting some other jobs here. Alright guys, that's the end of today's Q&A update video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to give the video a like, help support the channel. And if you want to be featured in our next Q&A video, we'll be posting when we do our next one on our Facebook page, on our YouTube community page, and on our Patreon page. So be sure to check those and make sure that you're following those so you can get updated on when we do our next Q&A video. Anyway, we'll see you next time here on Two Will Cruise.
Bye bye!